So Cataclysm Classic is about to come out, and it will change the classic world of Azeroth as we know it. The Cataclysm expansion drastically changed a lot of the zones that we have known and played in for years. With some drastic zone changes being made in Cataclysm, one great example is Thousand Needles, which literally had the entire zone flooded with water, completely destroying the zone that we have known and played in for years. In this video I will be exploring and taking a look at the details of post-Cataclysm Thousand Needles. So entering Thousand Needles from the Barrens, you get to see that the zone has been completely flooded, with the ground zone, which was the main part of Thousand Needles, being completely submerged in water. Even the Great Lift has been destroyed, and you can see the wreckage down in the water. One of the big themes of this zone is that the sea life has taken over the zone. You can find various sea life such as this sea snail and other aquatic enemies that are new to this expansion. Now it's worth mentioning that traversing this zone is actually very hard without a flying mount, because you are going to be swimming through water through the majority of it. I think it's only in Cataclysm we started to see zones that were primarily aquatic based. Another good example is Vashir. It's something that we really haven't seen up to this point. There's quite a lot of content in Thousand Needles that actually require you to have a flying mount to access, such as these plateaus that are a staple of this zone, can only be accessed if you have a way to fly up there. And as you can see, the view from here is pretty amazing. A noteworthy change to Thousand Needles in Cataclysm is the presence of the Twilight Hammer cult. There's quite a lot of these Twilight cultists. Now I think it's fair to say that in the Cataclysm there's been a big upgrade in terms of architecture, and one of the sub-factions that I've seen this improvement in architecture is the Twilight Hammer cult. Their buildings just look way more intimidating and imposing compared to the basic tents that we saw in Vanilla WoW and so on. I got to say I love this unique skybox with the lightning and the overcast clouds. It just looks very good. Like I mentioned before, a big theme of this zone is that aquatic sea life has taken over. There are various little islands in this zone that have been taken over by snapjaws. One new aspect of Cataclysm is that a lot of the quest mobs and elite mobs that you would fight in a quest actually have some scripting and mechanics beyond just hitting you and casting spells. Like this Grim Totem quest enemy here actually has more than one phase. At this point Blizzard were actually upping their game in terms of mechanics of mobs in the open world. I think something that is a bit underrated with Cataclysm is just how much Blizzard committed to the flavor of Cataclysm, and I think Thousand Needles is a good example of that, where they really didn't pull any punches. Like, this zone really has been destroyed. Like, it does feel like this zone is now post-apocalyptic, with the entire zone being flooded and all these new enemies from the sea that have taken up residence here. Blizzard could have very easily played it safe and had a few volcanoes and a few zones and called it a day and said that was Cataclysm, but no. They really did go out of their way to destroy some of these zones and make something new out of them. A cool detail with this new version of Thousand Needles is that there's quite a lot of these destroyed settlements that you can find underwater. One example being this Centaur camp that was in Thousand Needles. You can find the remnants of it underneath the water. It's pretty morbid that there used to be a civilization here and now they're just being completely wiped out. Like I mentioned before, there's just a different apocalyptic vibe to this place that are in quite a few Cataclysm zones, but I think Thousand Needles is a great example of it. So something that I didn't know until I started filming this is that the Silphid can exist underwater. So there was a Silphid camp in Thousand Needles in the Shimmering Flats, and even after the zone has been flooded, they still exist underwater, and this has some crazy implications. Like, I never knew the Silphid could actually live underwater, but apparently they can. A cool nod to OG players is that some of the minor NPCs, such as the ice cream vendor in Thousand Needles, is actually still alive and kicking, but selling ice cream from a boat. It's honestly crazy to see the Shimmering Flats underwater. Like I said before, it's just a very morbid theme to this place that Blizzard really didn't pull any punches with. One of the things that stands out the most in Thousand Needles is this thing called the speed barge. Now, this is actually quite fascinating because it's basically a floating city that is constructed by goblins and gnomes, surprisingly working together on this. I'm honestly amazed at how much detail is on this speed barge. It just looks so ahead of its time. Keep in mind that Cataclysm came out in 2010. That's basically 15 years ago. And if you told me that what I'm looking at here was a zone that came out today, I would believe you. The graphical detail that is on this speed barge is really impressive. The speed barge also has an inn where you can find various goblins and gnomes that are drinking it up and having a good time. And you get to see a bunch of like really cool details inside this place, like cool little paintings, pin-up posters, and also a crab in a bucket. That's not to say the speed barge is entirely safe. It's under assault by South Sea pirates that have literally the worst aim I've ever seen. However, on closer inspection, when you examine these pirates, it kind of makes sense why their aim is so bad. They're all blindingly drunk. I'm not really sure how to classify videos like this. It's kind of exploration, kind of lore, kind of just my opinion, but you guys seem to enjoy these videos, so if you do like it, drop a like and sub below. And if you want to see my video that I did on Hellfire Peninsula, you can check it out on screen here.